Chapter 26, The Trial, Antony's POV. Just as Julia had predicted, Miss Alina looked angry enough to rip Antony's eyes from his skull. Her broad shoulders were so tense that Antony felt weary just looking at her. Thaddeus looked pissed as well, but Antony noticed right away that Marcus's attention was focused entirely on Miss Alina. Apparently, and unsurprisingly, Thaddeus had been no trouble so far. Both of them were badly rumpled. Miss Alina had 4 deep scratches across one cheek, and Thaddeus was nursing a swollen eye. Clearly, it had been a vicious fight, if not a long one. Each of them had been aiming for their opponent's face. "All right, what's going on?" Antony sauntered towards them with all the careless authority he could muster. Marcus and Thaddeus tipped their heads deferentially. Miss Alina only glowered. "Thaddeus says Miss Alina put her hands on one of his humans," Marcus told him. "Miss Alina says that they were just talking, and that Thaddeus attacked her because the human wanted to leave his service and enter hers. None of us were present, at least not until Cloelia heard them crashing around and came to separate them." Cloelia, the elaborately tattooed and appallingly muscular head of the ship's fishing operations, scowled at the 2 combatants with undiscriminating irritation. Poor Thad. He wasn't getting much softness or sympathy from either of his lovers today. Well, if he wanted softness, he probably wouldn't have chosen Julia and Cloelia in the first place. "See, that makes it easy to learn the truth." Antony was relieved. He hated interrogating his vampires, and neither Thaddeus nor Miss Alina was given to deceit. "Where is the human in question?" The man crawled forward, trembling visibly. Thaddeus glanced down at him with concern plain on his face, which gratified Antony. Apparently, his desire for everyone to get along and be nice to each other extended to their offerings today. "What's your name?" Antony asked. "Dido, my lord," he managed. "All right, Dido. We won't make you recount what happened in front of everybody. You want to tell me what happened, or Lord Felix?" Felix looked up from where he stood among the onlookers, surprised. Well, Antony might have missed the position that Felix occupied for the humans on the ship for many years, but no more. The more Hanyu told him about the offerings, the more he heard Felix's name, and he wasn't quite stupid enough to ignore an asset once he knew he had it. He was proved right when the man timidly requested to speak with Felix. Felix, for his part, quickly swallowed his surprise and knelt in front of the man with a warm smile. "Hello, Dido. It's nice to see you again. Why don't you get up and come with me?" Dido followed Felix to Theodora's wheel, where they would be out of earshot. That handled, Antony turned his attention back to the miscreants. "He said that he wanted to belong to me instead," Miss Alina snapped before Antony could even ask. "He said Thaddeus is dull." That was entirely possible, and judging from the wounded look on Thad's face, he knew it too. Thaddeus was a good, reliable man with a wonderful ability to pare a complicated situation down to only the relevant issues. That didn't mean that he was very exciting. Antony remembered an excruciating night spent listening to Thaddeus rhapsodizing about all the different shapes of fish fins he had catalogued over the years, complete with detailed diagrams. If Dido had been forced to listen to that for a few years, it wasn't unthinkable that he might wish to run into the arms of a fiery master warrior instead. "I don't know what they were discussing," Thaddeus said slowly. "I just came upon Miss Alina with her arm around his shoulder, and she was leaning in, and I thought she was going to drink from him. If that was how the conversation went, then I owe you both an apology." "You would give him over to Miss Alina?" Antony was a little surprised. That would certainly make his night easier. "Of course, if that is his wish." Thaddeus winced. "And, well, I suppose that would open me up to a lashing for touching someone else's attendant. Oh dear. Well, that can't be helped." "I'm not going to lash you over a misunderstanding," Antony snapped. He would have said more, but Felix was motioning for him to join their little conference, and he excused himself and jogged over to the wheel. "Miss Alina isn't lying, but she's confused," Felix said once Antony reached them. Dido was kneeling by his feet, looking utterly miserable. "She misinterpreted some things," Dido said, "but he never asked her to take him from Thaddeus." "Misinterpreted how?" Antony asked. "What did he say to her?" "With respect, Lord Antony, you did tell Dido he could explain things to me rather than you." Felix's head was inclined politely, but his tone was firm. Antony swallowed a sigh. "All right, that's fair," he agreed. "But I need to know whether these things were close enough that Miss Alina could truly believe that that was what he was asking." Dido slumped forward into a full bow. "My lords, I didn't mean to be ungrateful to my master. I shouldn't have complained. I know I was wrong. Oh, is that the problem? Antony couldn't help laughing. You think you'll be in trouble for complaining about Thad? Let me tell you, Dido, my Hanyu could complain to you for a whole day without running out of grievances, and I'd have no fair way to argue any of it. You live together, for fuck's sake. Of course Thad gets under your skin. Dido stayed down, but Felix looked at him curiously. For someone who had known him for longer than any one creature should stay alive, Antony was having a hard time reading his expression. It was close enough, Felix confirmed after a moment. Most of us wouldn't be arrogant enough to take it that way, but Lena? Absolutely. All right, Antony nodded. Last question, Dido. You want to belong to Miss Alina or Thaddeus? He's willing to give up his claim if it's what you want. I want to stay with Lord Thaddeus, Dido whispered. I will try to be worthier of him, my lord, I swear, and I'll be happy to accept any punishment for causing all this trouble. Please don't give me to another master. That's all right, then. Antony turned on his heel, pausing only to ask Felix, See him back to Thad's rooms, will you? By the time Antony got back to the steadily growing crowd on the deck, Miss Alina looked even more pissed. He made sure to keep his voice and face matter-of-fact. It was just a misunderstanding, he told the assembled group. Dido didn't mean for you to take him, Miss Alina. He still belongs to Thaddeus and wants it that way. I'm not pleased that you two laid hands on each other, but since it was all just an honest mistake, I think we can— Oh! Miss Alina's voice cracked like breaking ice. You believe that little slut over me, Antony? No one thinks you're lying. Antony tensed as he saw Thaddeus's face darkening. Marcus noticed as well and put a quelling hand on the smaller vampire's shoulder. You misinterpreted what he was saying, and he freely admits that it was an easy mistake to make. He admits to being a fucking tease, you mean? Miss Alina spat. Lena, that's enough, Thaddeus growled. His fangs were showing, and Antony thought that Dido might not have found his master so boring if he could have seen him just then. Oh, I'm terrified, Miss Alina leered. Whatever will you do to me? You obviously weren't doing much for little Dido. He's been coming to my bed for over 3 months. Antony's stomach flipped all the way down to his toes. Oh no. He didn't think Miss Alina was lying. That would have made his life far too easy. And, judging by Thaddeus's face, he didn't think so either. Well, this explains why Felix had been so protective of the man's testimony. Fuck. You've done yourself no favors, Miss Alina. There was the royal voice he'd been striving for. Per your own confession, I'm going to exact the full penalty for unauthorized sex with someone else's human. You haven't left me much choice. You're going to punish me, and not the little whore who came crawling to throw himself at me? Her face was stark with its fury, and she was trembling all over. Antony knew better than to think her quivering came from fear of the lash. Dido's punishment is Thaddeus's concern. Antony could at least be grateful for that. Marcus? Marcus took his hand from Thaddeus's shoulder and turned towards Miss Alina, but before he had even completed the movement, Antony knew it was too late. The furious archer had launched herself at him. Antony barely had time to brace himself before her body slammed into his. As she always did, Miss Alina hit hard and fast. Her fist pummeled his side. He heard a sharp snap, and the answering flare of pain told him that it had probably been one of his ribs. Enough! Antony dodged her next jab and delivered 2 rapid strikes to her torso. That caught her off guard, but it was difficult to wind an opponent who didn't need to breathe. Her knee was flying up towards his groin before he'd even had his fist pulled back from her body. Antony dodged that strike, but doing so destabilized him enough that she was able to sweep his legs out from under him and send him crashing down onto the deck. Soon as he hit the wood, she was on top of him, but that just put her in his reach. Antony buried his hands in her hair and kept it in a death grip as he rolled them over. His instinct was to slam her head against the deck a few times, but at the last second he stopped himself. He was straddling her now, his legs pinning her arms, and the others had come to surround them. The fight was over. What the fuck was that? He demanded, staring down into her wild face. You want to punish me because Thaddeus's pet decided to go whoring? She spat. Or is it because I tried to step outside my role? Did I forget I'm good for a fuck and nothing else? Do you need to put me back in my place? What the hell? Clearly, Antony had stepped into something that went beyond an affair. Did this situation really have to get more overcomplicated? You took Thaddeus's human without his permission and attacked me for no damn reason. Antony was doing his best to keep his voice level, and he didn't think he was letting any of his sudden panic leak into his tone. That's all you're being punished for. Now come on, let's get this over with, all right? Then we'll talk. The anger slowly drained from her face. Even after all these years, Antony found himself surprised to see Miss Alina with no bluster, no cockiness, no fight in her. He'd forgotten how small and vulnerable she could look. "Fine," she said, and it scared him that it was closer to a sigh than a growl. "Do what you have to do." Antony rolled off her and extended a hand to help her up. Once she was standing, she jerked her hand back and dragged herself over to the nearest mast, where she shucked off her shirt and braced herself against its solid wood. Julia had fetched the lash without being asked. From anyone else, the gesture would have seemed over-eager and ghoulish. From her, it was simply practical. Antony took it and stared down at his archer's lean, muscled back. "For the crime of using Thaddeus's attendant without his permission, I sentence you to 20 lashes, he said, raising his voice enough to let it carry over the crowd. "For the crime of attacking me, 30 lashes. There was no more ceremony than that. He knew his siblings had more elaborate rituals on their own ships, more like the punishments in their father's court, but Antony preferred not to draw out these disciplinary sessions. If someone wanted him to whip them in bed, he could make a production of it. If it was a genuine punishment, he preferred to get it over with as quickly as possible. He swung his arm and had to bite back a wince as his newly broken rib protested the movement. Damn, this might hurt me worse than Lena. At least they would both be healed by the next night. He tried to keep his face level as the lash bit into Miss Alina's skin. She flinched, but that was all the reaction she gave. 1, she said. You don't have to keep count, Antony said. She should know that. It wasn't her first time on the wrong end of his whip. She didn't say anything else. He brought the lash down again. 2, Miss Alina counted. Well, as far as defiance went, this was harmless enough. Antony said no more about it. She kept her count in a clear, even voice. Other than that, she didn't make a sound. 50, she said as the last blow fell, her voice only a little strained. Antony dropped his whip onto the deck. He could almost hear his mother's voice in his head, scolding him for not taking better care of his things, but there were more pressing concerns. You're done, he said. Then he turned to the assembled crowd. All right, everyone, move along. Julia? The healer appeared at his side and reached out to help Miss Alina straighten. The archer shrugged off her hands and stood up on her own, then turned and dropped to one knee at Antony's feet. I thank you for your judgment and discipline, my lord, she said. I will not reoffend. It wasn't quite the script that had been used when the king passed judgment back home, but it was similar. Was she trying to shame him or draw a comparison between him and his father? No. Her face was just tired and unhappy, not malicious. She didn't resist when Julia pulled her to her feet. Feeling useless, Antony bent to retrieve her discarded shirt over the screaming objections of his broken rib and trailed after the two women as they headed for Miss Alina's room. He passed Thaddeus, who was looking lost and miserable. Is there somewhere you wouldn't mind waiting for a bit? He suggested. I could go to Felix's rooms, if he'll have me, Thaddeus said hesitantly. Perfect. I'll meet you there as soon as we get Lena sorted out, Antony said, then resumed moving so he wouldn't fall too far behind. His injury made walking painful, though it was no doubt healing already. When they reached the hallway, Julia left to get her chest of supplies. Antony took her place, supporting Miss Alina as they approached her room. He hardly thought she needed help walking. Surely the wounds were already healing? But she seemed to want his arm around her shoulders anyway, so he kept it there. So, he said as soon as Julia was out of earshot, 3 months? Unfortunately. Her tone was caustic, but thankfully she didn't seem inclined to spew any more vicious insults. That sounds like more than an ill-advised tumble or two. I got more invested than I should have. Miss Alina stopped walking and sighed. It'll be all over the ship soon, so I might as well tell you now. Iovita ended things with me a few hours ago. Oh. Antony wasn't quite sure how to respond to that news. They were right to do it. I know I'm exhausting, and they were tired of being tired. Still, that makes for a pretty shitty day, Antony sighed. Damn, I wish I could buy you a drink, a dozen drinks. It's the little things you miss. Miss Alina rolled her eyes and flashed him a wan smile. You can lose your magic, your home, your family, your wealth, your soul, but take away alcohol and you turn into a bunch of pissy children. You think we don't have souls? Antony blurted, startled. Miss Alina shrugged and winced as the movement tugged her wounds. The vampires in the stories didn't. But we're not really vampires. They modeled the curse on vampire stories, and we use the word because it's easy and funny, and we got in the habit. But it's not like we're actually undead. Miss Alina scoffed. Does the way we behave seem indicative of souls? I don't think we lost them in the curse. I think they wore away over time. Julia strode back out of her room with her big medical chest under her arm. She looked surprised to see them still lingering in the hallway, but all she said was, "You should go lie down on your stomach." Antony helped Miss Alina to her door, which was opened by her attendant. He was a plump, pleasant-seeming man who looked at her tenderly and asked permission to hold her hand while Julia set to work on her back. The sight made Antony feel a little better. She might have lost 2 lovers in one night, but there was still care in Miss Alina's life. Anyhow, he'd never known his brash Archer to stay down for long. He, on the other hand, knew he would not be able to break free of the question of souls any time soon.